Good evening, and welcome to our regularly scheduled Thursday night meeting, February 26th of 2026. Just a brief announcement. Some of you may have noticed last meeting on Monday, we had some technical difficulties. We're still working those kinks out. So unfortunately, we are not live on Zoom this evening, but we are on the city's website through YouTube. So that is the best way to access the meeting remotely. And then also a recording will be available within 48 hours. All right, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Clark?
Here.
Councilmember Orbach? Here. Councilmember Westman? Here. Vice Mayor Jensen?
Here.
And Mayor Morgan?
Here. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any additions or deletions this evening?
Staff has no changes to the agenda this evening.
Great, thank you. It'll bring us to our presentations, the proclamation recognizing the work of the Aruka Project. I didn't know if somebody else was going to say something first. I'll do it first. No, I need people to tell me. Okay. Well, this is a special one. These two lovely ladies came to us a few weeks ago, and I'm just really proud that we've been able to do this proclamation. The Aruka Project, it's a survivor-led organization. They've committed to restoring hope and healing to those that have been impacted by sex trafficking. This organization is built upon the passion, dedication, and professional expertise of individuals devoted to restoring the lives of sex trafficking survivors. Aruka Project offers hope, advocacy, and critical resources to support survivors as they recover. The mission of the Aruka Project is to restore, renew, and rebuild the lives of survivors of sex trafficking in the Santa Cruz County and beyond. The City of Capitola recognizes our collective responsibilities to support these efforts. Therefore, I, Margot Morgan, the Mayor of the City of Capitola, I recognize and commend Aruka Project for its unwavering commitment to combating human trafficking, its survivor-centered leadership, and its vital role in restoring dignity, freedom, and hope to survivors. A heartfelt thank you. And come on up to receive if you'd like.
Thank you for all the work.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I know. Yes, the real thing.
And is it okay to go? Okay. So good evening, Mayor and members of the Capitola City Council. On behalf of Aruka Project, thank you for this proclamation recognizing us, the work that we do, and also for last month as January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. We are deeply honored, not just by the recognition, but by what it represents. A city willing to acknowledge that this issue exists and committed to being part of the solution. Human trafficking is often misunderstood. Many people imagine that it only happens in distant countries or major metropolitan areas. But the reality is that trafficking happens in every county in California, including here in our own region. To understand the scope of the issue, according to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, in 2024 alone, there were 1,733 confirmed human trafficking cases in California, with 3,603 survivors. Those are just the reported cases. This is not a distant problem. This is our state, this is our home, and this is our communities. Here in Santa Cruz County, the Civil Grand Jury report from last June highlighted that human trafficking is significantly underidentified and underreported locally, not because it isn't happening, but because coordinated tracking, data collection, and training have been limited. In other words, the problem is often hidden instead of visible. And we just saw how real and local this issue is during the most recent Super Bowl in the Bay Area. A coordinated regional human trafficking task force spanning nearly 70 law enforcement agencies across 11 counties rescued 73 individuals, arrested 29 traffickers, including 10 minors, one as young as 12. While those numbers are difficult to hear, they also tell another story, that when law enforcement, agencies, nonprofits, and community partners work together, rescue and intervention are possible. And that is where RUCA Project comes in. We exist to move beyond awareness and into action. We work diligently alongside law enforcement in active rescue and recovery operations. When a victim is identified, our trained advocates are often called in immediately to respond, and we provide on-site trauma-informed advocacy, survivor care kits, coordinate emergency transportation, and temporary safe placements. We begin the process of stabilization right there in the moment of crisis, because rescue is only the first step. We also provide specialized training for law enforcement, medical professionals, schools, and community groups so that more eyes in our community can recognize the signs of trafficking and respond appropriately. The more educated and aware it becomes, the harder it is for exploitation to take root. This work is heavy, it's complex, and it requires a unified community, and that is why this proclamation matters. With the City of Capitola publicly acknowledging human trafficking, it sends a powerful message. It tells survivors that they are seen. It tells traffickers our community is paying attention. And it tells organizations like ours that we are not standing in this alone. Thank you for your leadership, your partnership, and thank you for standing with survivors, not just in words, but in action. Together, we can continue building a community where exploitation has no safe harbor and where every survivor has a path toward safety, dignity, and hope. Thank you.
I won't traumatize everyone tonight. So I did tell my story last time. I am Natasha, the Deputy Director of RUCA Project, and I am that survivor. We are very proud to be survivor-led. So I want to thank you because as we are all sitting here tonight and we get to go home to our families, there are victims waiting for us to rescue them. Please always, always remember that. Thank you.
Thanks again. Such great, important work. And thank you for helping Capitola get in the visibility of it. All right, that is our presentation for this evening. I just wanted to start out by saying that over time, I think some of the meeting styles have become a little bit relaxed. I want to reiterate the format of our agendas and point out that both comments from members of the public along with council members are limited to 3 minutes, which is stated. And I'd also like to point out the structure of council questions, public comment, and then council comments. I ask that any council comments on items be held until after council hears from the public to maintain fairness and transparency. Council members could ask that something be agendized for further discussion to modify the rules if preferred. So thank you so much. Let's move on to additional materials.
Staff received additional materials for items 8A, 8B, and 8C. There was one email for item 8A, 4 for 8B, and 1 for 8C. All materials are available for public review online and in the back of the room in our hard copy packet.
Great, thank you so much. We'll take us to oral communications by members of the public. I'll just reiterate, you'll have 3 minutes, and the subject cannot be of any item that is on tonight's agenda. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Goran Klopic. I'm former security guard of Zelda's on the beach. I did a front door with my black brother George for a while. I have a question. Today I made a call to CPD, and I was hoping to have Moreno on the line, because he's very, very articulate, sometimes. Because I found some a baggie and white powder on 41st Avenue next to a hotel. I think it's Best Western called across Best Western. That's where I found that baggie and some logs too. I don't know who put the locks there, but they did not comprehend English very well when I placed this call. Maybe je parle français. I should speak French to the CPD sometimes. So that they understand what I'm talking about. I'm not making these calls for nothing. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you. Any other public comment this evening? All right, I don't see any. Let's take it to staff comments. I think we have Director Khan.
Person. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. You may have noticed if you've crossed Stockton Bridge in the past few days that we have a message sign up there talking about traffic changes for next week. We're doing that in an effort to work on the Stockton Avenue Bridge. We are doing a in situ, which means in place exercise. So we're not doing any kind of repairs at this time, but we are opening up the bridge deck. So saw cutting into the bridge deck so engineers can take a look and tell us what the condition is. So that's going to require some traffic challenges. We are not going to be starting this week as scheduled. We will be starting on the 9th. We have our social media lined up, and you'll be receiving also an update in the Friday update about the specifics of those traffic impacts. That's it.
That's a great update. Thank you so much. Anything else from staff? Great.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to provide a staff comment about the tech issues. Thank you so much for what you said earlier in the meeting. You're correct. As always, our meetings are broadcast live on YouTube, and that's embedded in our city website. So you can find that in two ways if you're watching from home, and as well as being here in person. The technology should work fine this evening with this little Band-Aid for the night. We are still assessing the issue. All signs point to something out of staff control and out of CTV control, something to do with Zoom itself. So we are working on it. I really apologize. That's not how anyone wants to come across during an important public meeting. So I appreciate your patience. And if anyone has questions, they can email me outside of the meeting.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to let the public know that the meeting last Monday was continued to another special meeting on the mall zoning code updates to March 16th. That's a Monday at 5:30 p.m. So we'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please share.
So a while back when I was actually a captain, I had put in for a couple of two portable electronic message boards. And I was just advised yesterday that FEMA has finally approved that. So we're going to get 2 more message boards. Yeah, that's really exciting for me. And I know it's exciting for Jessica.
I think that's awesome. Yeah.
So, so we're in the process of just finishing it up through OR3. But
That's great.
the task was made, and I thought didn't know that it was going to ever actually land. So there it is.
Thank you. That's great. Anything else from staff? Good. Okay, great. We'll go to council. Councilmember Clark.
Yes, I know we're talking about the Rispin Mansion landscaping later, but I wanted to talk about the Rispin Mansion benches and tables that got put in today, or in the last couple of days. They look great. They're already being used well. So good on the city for keeping the project going.
Thank you. Councilmember Rohrbach. Councilmember Westman, any comments?
I just wanted to make one, and that was that I attended the Senior Advisory Council meeting last week. And one of the main issues that we're dealing with is that the state of California Department on Aging is changing all the regulations related to how senior councils on aging operate. And currently, Santa Cruz County operates jointly with San Benito County. And we're working to try and keep that relationship together because under new state regulations that have come out, the state's now saying that they want to take over aging programs in counties that have less than 100,000 people. And San Benito County actually has less than 100,000 people. So we're hopeful that we will be able to work this out and continue to have our two counties work together, because so far it's been quite successful.
Good, I hope that moves forward. Vice Mayor? No comments? Where did we just come from? We just came from a lovely ribbon cutting at the Capitola Bridge, and many thanks to Vice Mayor Jensen for all of his work on the RTC and getting a good turnout for the ribbon cutting. It was it's a beautiful day. It was a beautiful event, and we've gotten great feedback on the speed tables as well. So thank you to Public Works for helping us get those installed. We watched everybody drive very slowly today, so that was great. Yeah, just a couple comments. It's been a busy week, you guys. We did have our special meeting on Monday. Thank you, Director Hurley, for that presentation, and it will be continued to Monday, the 16th of March. So hopefully see you guys all there. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of another ribbon cutting along with Councilmember Clark at the reopening of El Toro Bravo. After a long 13 months of rebuilding from the explosion on Christmas Day, they're back in action, and their resilience and determination is something to be supported. So it was nice to be there. And also attended a meeting. Director Hurley and the city manager and I met with the owner of the new grocery outlet on 41st Avenue. Her name's Renee. Just a nice way to put face to a name, somebody that we've worked with in the past while she was opening up. But it's nice to sort of check in as a way to build these community relationships and community development. So hopefully I look forward to doing a few more of those this year as mayor. And yeah, that was it for me. So we will move on to our agendas. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's do consent. How about that? Item 7 is consent. They can all be enacted in one motion. If somebody would like to pull an item, all one of the items.
I move the recommended action to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on February 12th.
I'll second that.
Great. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Now we can do general government. Item 8A, landscape plans for the park at Rispin Mansion.
So I would like to announce that I'm going to recuse myself on this item. While I don't have a financial conflict or live within 500 feet of the mansion, my husband's on the board of Capitola Cares, and just so there's no appearance of favoritism and being completely transparent, I think it's, what's the phrase, an abundant amount of caution, I am going to recuse myself. Thank you.
Okay, we'll call you back in a minute. Thank you. All right, so tonight the recommended action is to approve the updated landscape plan for the park at Rispin Mansion and provide direction regarding a commemorative paver project at the park, and authorize staff to negotiate a memorandum understanding with Capitola Cares to coordinate fundraising efforts for additional elements at the park. And here's Chloe.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you just noted, there's quite a few different pieces to this report. So I'm going to try to keep it high level and fun and interesting and easy to understand. First off, as Councilmember Clark mentioned, yes, the park is open and lovely, and I just want to really highlight the work that Public Works did on making that happen for the community. And as a beautiful day today, it's one of the only places you can go that has shade. So it's a huge win for the community. Here's some pictures that I just took the other day walking to the library. So starting you off with some terms to know, the park is large and we all use different language to explain things. So during this presentation, I'm going to do my best to refer to these three central areas as the central terrace areas. So that is what this diagram is intending to show. As you can see, I think we all know where the reflecting pool is. So along, there are the three central terrace areas. Does that make sense? Great. Okay, thank you. So keep that in mind. A little background. So the reason we're here today is basically the outcome of your direction in fall of last year, which was to work with Michael Arnone to update his original landscaping plan for the park that was started in 2014. So the park is open. Mr. Arnone did a wonderful job reviewing his original concepts, tweaking them, and is here this evening to discuss what he proposed. The plan was in your packet. So I'm gonna let him speak. This is just a visual to get, to remind you of what was in your packet, and then I have some pictures of the plants. But I'll invite Mr. Arnone up to the podium to just briefly go over his plan. Then I promise I will keep talking after he's done.
Hey, before I start, good evening. I just want to, I don't know who to thank, but all the bike lane stuff that's been done. As a bike rider, we really appreciate that, and it's really helping, so appreciate it. Yeah, my first contract with the city was back in 2011, and we issued a number of drawings, but happy to see all the stuff going in and people using it. And the smiles on people's faces, and everybody is really enjoying it. So it's great. It's been a long time coming, but it's really nice to see it come to fruition. What I was asked to do, I met with Jessica and with Chloe, and I was asked to kind of reduce the numbers of plants, minimize some of the areas in order to make the plan, the park, easier to maintain over time and a little less expensive to install. So that's kind of what we did. We probably reduced the numbers of plants by about a third. The plant list, which, if you're interested, we can go over in more detail, but about 80% of the plants are low water use plants. Many are considered drought tolerant. About 80% are native plants. So there's a few Australian natives and a few other oddballs, but mainly they're California native plants, things that are well suited for the project. And the plant list hasn't changed a whole lot since we issued the plans in probably 2022. It's just the numbers that you're seeing on the plan. The interior terrace, I guess the upper terraced area, that was the area that we changed the most. It was significantly planted with individual plants, and it was kind of really colorful, but it wasn't really practical for use for anything. Originally in the 1920s, when Rispin lived there, that was all grass, real grass. Didn't have the water issue, didn't have the money of maintaining it issues. So we never thought using real grass was practical because of the water use, and et cetera. So what's shown on the plan currently is a grass type of plant. It gets about 6 to 10 inches high, called carex, and it's a sedge. So it's an option. It's not going to be mistaken for a lawn. I mean, you're not going to run across it easily, but it will look green, and that's probably the discussion point when we get on later on with some of the fundraising stuff. Let's see, some of the plants, as those of you who've walked the park, have already been planted by the city. The majority have not, and so you're seeing a lot, and there's a little bit that's not included in that drawing that roll down the ramp that goes to the bridge, and then farther down the hill, we're planting that area as well around the amphitheater and also the slope that goes down to the mansion. So there's a significant number of things that were changed when the plan was installed. And so part of what I did was to update the plan to show the actual paving that was done and things that weren't done, according to the plan. Mainly the DG areas around the sundial, which is in the very center where the pointer is, and also the DG that's around the reflecting pool. And that's, I think we'll talk about later, as possibly where the pavers are supposed to go. The intent was to have the pavers that echo, the original pavers that are there on the entrance to the mansion, and to kind of bring that in to highlight those areas. So, but other than the quick walkthrough, I'm really happy with everything that's been done. I think it looks great. The benches, the picnic tables, the drinking fountain, all the new trash receptacles, the game tables that are down by the mansion are really kind of fun. And there's a lot of things. I have a list of things that I would like to see done that were originally on the plan, but that's, I guess, for another day. But anyway, I'm open to answer any questions you have and hopefully move forward.
Great, thank you. We can save questions till the end, if that's okay. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Arnone.
Thank you.
Beautiful pictures of some of the plants that are listed in your plan here. So, circling back, as Mr. Arnone said, the intention of updating the plan was making the recommendations more feasible for long-term maintenance. And the wonderful news that with this plan, it is feasible within our city's existing staff capacity, the labor, installation, and ongoing maintenance of everything in that plan. So that's amazing. The other news is that funding for buying the plants is not currently budgeted. So I'll break that down a little bit for you, but as a reminder, we are going into budget prep cycle really soon here for next fiscal year. So council could direct staff to consider programming funds for that part of the project during that time. So the funding that would be needed, $50,000 is an estimate for most of the proposed landscaping. An additional $60,000 would be needed to irrigate and test and also plant that ground cover, the Sexus? I'm just kidding. The Carex plant ground cover in the 3 upper terrace areas, which, as mentioned, will come into play in a few minutes when we move forward to the next part of the presentation. So total funding necessary would be $110,000 for everything in the proposed landscape plan. So, second part, commemorative pavers. Council mentioned and that there was desire to have an engraved paver program at this location in the city. These can be really great. It gives the community a feeling of belonging in a park. The engraved pavers in front of the library I know are really popular. They can also be a way for the city to raise money. And in this case, the way we've estimated the numbers, a project like this could allow for more paving throughout the park. So as Mr. Arnone mentioned, there are 2 specific areas. There's a diagram coming of decomposed granite, DG, and they should, based on like historic use, be paved with regular brick-shaped pavers. So if we were to be directed to move forward with this project, we estimate about 400 engraved pavers could be sold, raising around $80,000, which would allow for the installation of more than 5,000 stones in 2 different locations. So, promised diagram. I hope everybody can see this. There are 2 different areas where the paver stones could go in. Staff is only recommending that purple kind of donut around the reflecting pool, which will be public art in the future, to have the engraved pavers. We think it would be more aesthetically pleasing to keep the engraved pavers in the same general area and kind of with that community, that public art kind of all together would be a very cohesive look. And depending on public interest and demand, if we hear that more than 400 people are interested, we could come back to council, but that's what we're currently recommending. So that's the paver program. I have more fun. Our third point is really amazing news, which is that there is a potential partnership for further fundraising. A group named Capitola Cares has approached the city. They're interested in enhancements for the park and are willing to raise and direct money to those enhancements. So the 3 specific ideas that they have are listed here on the screen, one of which being the 8-pillar arbor that was originally proposed with the park. Again, I have another diagram, so I'll bring that up in a second. Artificial turf in the 3 central terrace areas, and then making the existing fountain, not the reflecting pool, but the fountain itself, work so that it's having water there. So that would sort of look like this. So again, it would be artificial turf in those 3 central areas. That would preclude the need for the additional $60,000. The 8-pillar arbor, there's a rendering here below, would go north, Jessica? On the north side of the central terrace. And then at the other end, so kind of mirroring that, would be the fountain. So those are the 3 items that our amazing fundraising group has come to the city wanting to raise money for. And their leader is here this evening, and I'm sure if there's questions, Gail Ortiz can either speak or answer questions, whatever is best. So that's very exciting. And then just to kind of wrap everything up, the recommendation would be to approve the landscaping plan and direct staff to develop funding options for the plants. And then I would need direction from you on the engraved paver project and the fundraising partnership, particularly those 3 proposed elements. If council is to say, yes, please, go forth with both of those ideas, I would bring back more of a policy around the program for the pavers and an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the nonprofit at a later date. So that was a lot of information. I can pause for questions. And then I have our 2 experts. We have Mr. Arnone and Gail Ortiz here as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We'll take questions.
I guess we'll start with our landscaper, Michael. At Carex grass, Carex. Is it already over at the library?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there some planted at the library already? There's something that looks awfully similar.
I didn't work on that, and I'm not 100% sure, but
There was in the bioswale out front, which is now dead.
But in the back, there's one little area, as I walk through there every day. It looks like it is, and I really like it. It's doesn't get more than 4 to 6 inches high, and you can still walk over it. Although like you said, it's not grass.
Yeah.
But I think it's the same material, and I was curious about that.
Another issue, can you put up the plan that shows the existing tree canopies? Another issue is when you have established oaks, which are those large, like kind of double concentric circles that kind of overhang that area. When you have established oaks and you're introducing a lot of water or any significant amount of water, it can be harmful to the trunks and the roots of those oaks. And so that's another issue that makes me want to not have, something that's going to need a lot of water. The Carex is kind of a medium water use plant. So it's probably a decent choice, but it's not ideal.
That's all the questions I had on this one.
I was just curious whether we know the cost difference between the artificial turf and the Carex. You said estimated that the Carex will cost about $60,000.
I don't have that number.
Okay.
The savings, just to talk about it in general, the savings, the artificial turf is quite a bit more expensive than putting in the plants. But the advantages are, the water use, the maintenance, there's a significant amount of maintenance involved. And just the fact that, again, as I mentioned about the adding water to the under the roots of the.
So I heard you correctly that you did not recommend the Carex because of the water concern with the oak trees. Is that true?
No, I think the Carex, if we're going to do plant material, is probably the best.
That is the best
option.
Choice.
But it wouldn't. I would prefer. The artificial turf would be much more usable, and obviously much less maintenance.
Do we know the maintenance costs of watering?
So I don't know that number, but what I can add, because I was telepathically communicating with our public works director, is that artificial turf would be significantly more expensive than normal plants, right? To install. Thank you.
Also, maybe Mike could confirm, I think my understanding of Carex Panta is you can sort of mow it once or twice a year in terms of maintenance. It's not like a lawn where you're out there with the clipper every week or anything.
Vice Mayor, questions?
I'll hold my questions until I hear from, Ms. Ortiz is going to be speaking. Thank you.
I had a question for the pavers. I think just in other programs in the past, there's been like sort of tiers, like different sizes. We're just going to go with the one.
Such a good question. And based on kind of how this has looked through time and just aesthetics, they're not huge areas. So I think staff determined that the best way forward would be just the same size bricks.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. Thank you. And then I guess I was wondering, so if we approve the sort of ground cover landscaping portion, and then we also decide to partner with Capitola Cares, are we going to install the ground cover? Or are we going to wait and they want to fundraise to do the artificial turf, or like how do we see that working out?
I think ultimately it's up to City Council, but if your intention was to approve the fundraising partnership with those three elements as stated in the report, I would think that we would hold off on installing anything in those areas.
Okay. Okay, cool. Those are my questions, and we can.
I have another question.
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, about the bricks. We see on the bricks, there's not a lot of room. Are we going to keep it down to like less than 4 words?
So that's a good question. I'm so sorry that I don't have a character count in my head, but there are companies that do this, and often standard size bricks are used for these kind of projects. So I think it wouldn't be, a flowery paragraph, but it would still be enough space for a nice statement or someone's name.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Those details, if we're directed, we would come back with a policy, the brick policy, and it would include sort of the details, the specifications on the brick, the number of characters, kind of the details, so the council gets to see them before we roll it out.
Definitely.
Great. Thank you. Nothing further up here? Okay, we'll go to the public. Come on up. Welcome, thanks.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. I'm Gail Ortiz. I'm a board member of Capitola Cares, so I'm here tonight representing Capitola Cares. Therefore, I will read my comments, which I really suck at reading comments, but you just have to, I don't want to skip anything. I'm representing other people. So Capitola Cares is a community-anchored nonprofit supporting organizations and initiatives that foster community well-being, encourage civic engagement, and build connected, resilient futures for all who live and work here in Capitola. We've chosen the Park at Rispin as our first public fundraising project because we feel like it's the last little jewel in the crown in Capitola. We have the library, we have the wharf, and we've waited a long time for the Rispin. The Capitola community has shown remarkable willingness and ability to support projects like the Rispin Gardens. Past campaigns include raising over $500,000 for the new Capitola Library and raising over $250,000 for enhancements on the Capitola Wharf. We have high degree of confidence that our community will come together again to make the Rispin Park and Mansion a county-wide destination. Capitola Cares would like to raise funds to rebuild the arbor, as you've heard, install artificial turf in the 3 upper terrace areas, and refurbish the existing fountain. We're encouraged by our meetings with Capitola, the staff at Capitola. They've been wonderful to work with, and their willingness to help us with this has been very encouraging. To date, we have raised $60,000, which is not bad. And we still have not gone out to the public yet. So these are private pledges that we've raised. We're advocating the installation of the turf in the 3 upper terrace areas. It will provide an inviting area for visitors to have picnics, play with their children on the turf, or just relax in the garden. Maybe come from the library and read a book on the turf. Although the Carax is probably able to be sat on, I don't think it's as inviting as turf. In addition, the artificial turf will create a long-range solution to the staffing, maintenance of that area, and water issues by saving the city thousands of dollars in future maintenance while eliminating the need for water. The initial cost of the turf is much higher than the plantings described in the plan. This will be a big reach for Capitola Cares. Since this will help the city in the long run and possibly save you money in the other plantings that you'll be doing, we're hoping the city will consider partnering with us to install the turf by including at least half or about half in your budget of 26 and 27, if you would consider that in your funding cycle. We're really excited about this campaign and look forward to the park at Rispin being restored to its former glory. And I'll answer any questions you have.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
We'll see if any other comments? No? Okay. Great. Great info, thank you. All right, let's take it back. I'm going to start over here.
First of all, thank you, Mike, for hanging in there since 2011. Really appreciate your dedication. Might be your longest project on your website that you can post about, so thank you. And I know you're going into retirement, and so maybe this will be this is it. We'll make sure you have a brick to highlight your success, and one of your projects doesn't last you a matter of 15 years. But it's really appreciated, so thank you for hanging in there for that. Also, thank you to Capitola Cares, and I was just wondering, for the full transparency, would you mind sharing who is on your board for Capitola Cares, just so everybody knows who the group is, and we can make sure we thank them when we're out in the community for their efforts?
Yes, we're small but mighty. Megan Morrissey, Heidi Callison, Nels Wesson, and myself.
Well, please thank them for, again, taking on another project. Couple maybe questions that aren't directly related to this, but I was wondering if the city manager could give us a quick update at the same time we look at these improvements on what's going on with the reflection pond as we envision this whole thing. Can you just give us where we are with that in that process?
I could take a stab at it, but I think Director Bryan might be able to give us a little bit better, more accurate information.
And these are amazing what's going on, but I'd like to see how the reflection pond is coming into play at the same time. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. So the Rispin Reflecting Pool is a current public art project for the Art and Cultural Commission. There is a call to artists currently out on the website where we are taking proposals, and the deadline is set to close in a few weeks. We already have some applications, and we are still waiting to have there's a budget that is allocated from the Public Art Fund for this project, but then there's also a grant that has been applied for by the Director of Public Works for the project. And so once the application period closes, the commission will be reviewing the proposals and will hopefully have a recommendation for council for that project. Anticipate around the summer.
Perfect, thank you. And there's another point of clarification. Can you maybe go back to the drawing and show us where, like we talked about the pond and then there's a fountain, and so how does the fountain, I know for people who haven't been up there, I think it's great to talk about that. And then what's it talk about making the fountain operational? I think that's one of the goals. What's that really mean?
Okay, so I think I can. I'm so excited. So I'm sorry that the picture is small, but even on this version, where this on the right-hand side, the arrow pointing that says fountain emitter. So if you visualize the park, and actually, there's a picture at the beginning. Yes, on the left. So where that metal begonia art is hanging, that's the fountain. Now what you can see is there's a little groove, and there's a groove going on the ground, and it's coming to, I should have put these in the other order, I'm realizing, because it's going to where this all is planted is the reflecting pool. So in the olden days, that fountain would be on and the water would run into the fountain, the reflecting pool. Now, of course, with the public art, the reflecting pool is not going to have water in it. There's a lot of reasons why it's not necessarily a great idea for a park, big liability and cost. So the proposal to make the fountain work is that there would be a fountain head where that begonia is, and the water would run down into that little baby pool and just kind of recirculate. And I'll let our public works director add anything if I've... Yay, okay, I got a thumbs up. So does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then one thing I know we looked at before was there was some signage that was in the project at one time, additional signage, and I didn't see that highlighted. Is there a plan for that for the future? And connected to that, a shout out to Public Works and the city staff for the signage that's been put in has been extremely well received, and everybody likes the QR code and everything like that. And so I was wondering where that part of the signage part of the project was looking at.
Thank you for asking. So it's my understanding that there wasn't interest in raising funds for that from our partner, but the city, like if council were to direct the city to include that in the updated landscaping project or just an add-on to the park, I think that would be something we could do.
I think it would be beneficial if we could spend just a little bit of time just to understand what that really means as a project. I have heard of some interest of some community members that have been involved outside of the Capitola Care. So maybe if we understood what that order of magnitude is it just a couple signs, or what's the real vision if the staff has that? And I think there might be some interest, maybe somebody privately funding that or looking at additional funding.
So I will mention that our city recently submitted or is submitting a Measure Q grant that council reviewed, I think at the last meeting or maybe the meeting before, that included some native habitat restoration as well as interpretive panels, which I think is what you're referencing. And so that may be a funding source for some interpretation out there about the habitat, about the restoration, about sort of, the history, those kinds of things. So that is an outstanding funding source that we may hear from relatively soon.
With the Capitola luck, maybe all this will come together at one time. So I'm in full support of everything I've heard, but I would love to hear from the other council members. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and for Capitola Cares for stepping up. It's great to see such a successful group of impressive board members who have successfully fundraised many other projects in the past to step up and do this as well. So I'm really excited. I think it's a great idea. I am in full support of this direction. I do have a clarifying question. I know Ms. Ortiz mentioned wanting the city to contribute half. Can you clarify what that ask is? Is it half of the labor to put in the turf? Is it half of the cost?
So your Public Works Director has given us a very broad estimate, and I think she's, as she mentioned, overestimated quite a bit, but it was around $150,000+ to installed. So we would hope that maybe half of that, or the $60,000 you would have put towards the CARAX, something like that.
Okay.
And it could come in quite a bit less than that, but estimates end up having to be quite a bit higher. So we're hoping that it's not quite that much.
Great, thank you. I think it's fair if we're gonna plan to plant anything to contribute to the project if we decide to move forward with the turf option. I do like the idea of low maintenance and saving the city money in the long term and having a more usable space for families, having young children. So I know, I think I also think about the historic nature of the park and whether turf is the best, but in terms of usability and longevity and sustainability, I think it does make sense.
Yeah, I'd like to shout out and thank Capitola Care. It's remarkable of what our community does in times of need. It's awesome. Can we go back to the 3 areas where the turf was going to go?
Absolutely.
I too am kind of not highly in favor of turf, but I'm thinking maybe if we did the 2 areas near the arbor and just on the other side of the sundial, and then do the 3rd area with the reflecting pool with the CARX. Just throwing that out there. I think because then we keep some elements of natural, and I think that would look uniform if, and take a 1/3 of the way of the artificial turf. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Great. Yes, thank you, Capitola Cares. Thank you, Mr. Arnone. I know there's been a lot of work done. I'm kind of leaning towards what Councilmember Clark just mentioned, is maybe doing a mixture of the two. The turf does sound a little too artificial for what the style of the area is, but I am into the fact that it's low maintenance. A lot of my neighbors have in their front yards, I just tried to look it up. I think it's called silver carpet. It's a lot shorter than the Carex. And I think you can definitely easily walk on it and enjoy it, sit on it. I don't know if there's a possibility to maybe look into like a couple different options as far as if we use something natural, what else besides Carex is out there. I would be interested to play around with that. And otherwise, I am in total support of the paver program for sure, and connecting with Capitola Cares, however that looks like. And I agree with Councilmember Orbach that it should be a partnership moving forward. So would that be something that would come back then? I mean, we're sort of approving the plan, but then also partnering at the same time. So what does that look like moving forward?
So I think the next step for moving forward would be that staff would begin to work on a contract with Capitola Cares and MOU to outline sort of roles, responsibilities, expectations. We would want to kind of get direction, I think, from the council about whether or not we would include artificial turf. My suggestion, if we were to split it up, would maybe be to defer the decision about which the zones are, to give staff and our landscape architect an opportunity to maybe talk about kind of where the use might be heavy, kind of how best to integrate it. Or if you'd like us to look into I think it's Diamondia. I just looked it up. If you'd like to us to look into that other type of sort of low maintenance, drought tolerant landscape, we could do that as well. I think it's really up to the council.
I just had another weird question, and I don't mean to be gross, but I'm just wondering about pet waste and turf and other things. Are there any thoughts or how?
Question.
I know I have turf at my house, and so I know the way we did it's layered in a way where pet waste is not such an issue, but is that something that would be considered? Because I know you have to add extra layers and do all this stuff, which I don't know if that adds money or what that would be. So just a concern. I don't know. Throwing that out there because I take my dog there all the time. So, but I do clean it up, by the way. Okay, so that's just a thought. So any other comments or questions?
No, I think you brought up a valid concern about pet space. I've installed thousands and been involved in installing thousands of square feet on public schools and stuff like that. And it's maintenance, and usually about once a year you go out and wash off the area that's in need. But I mean, it has an amazing system in that it filters through and everything. So I'm personally not too concerned about it because it is installed so much. Our neighboring, school district right here, just installing in all the fields and stuff, and we can reach out to them. And then just with the comment, just talking about the different zones, maybe also just some other input for us to look at. Can we reach out to like the Children's Museum, who might be using that space a lot, as a breakout space, for using activities. If the turf, maybe talk to the library, what they see the use if this open area opens up and there's more space. I'd hate to. The turf just provides a lot of opportunities for lots of different functions and stuff like that, and to cramp off, an area of 800 square feet, would that affect the use from some of our community who might use the space? So maybe some outreach and get some of that input back as we look at it might be beneficial for us making decisions. So.
Great. Okay. What other direction or how do we see this moving forward?
Well, I think the key here is microphone. I think the first thing is to approve the landscaping plan and then provide directions about for us about the engraver project. Let us know if it sounds like we're on the right track, and then we would follow up with the policy. And then I think around the Capitola Cares fundraising partnership and sort of the three proposed elements. If we want to split the artificial turf off for later to discuss more, if we're comfortable moving forward with a portion of it, 2/3 of it, I think, the council can just come to a consensus or give us direction and let us know. So we'd like to get approval of the landscape plan and then direct us to look into funding the remaining landscaping in the next budget cycle. And then up on the slide, provide direction on the paver project and then kind of how you're seeing the fundraising partnership going.
So I can make a motion to approve the recommended action to first, number one, approve the updated landscaping plan. I would like to move forward with the proposal to have the 400 pavers at $200 a piece. You guys can figure out the details. And then authorize staff to negotiate a memorandum of understanding with Capitola Cares. In terms of the details, you guys can figure that out, right? Turf or not turf.
It'd be good to know.
You have a preference.
If you have a preference.
I think what I hear is we're flexible in terms of what our the public, right, the library, mod, community members would think is more highly valuable for use. And I think mixed use is fine too if we want to do part natural, part artificial. I'm personally open, and it sounds like
Yeah, I'm open to that. Is that direction that we can give? But if coming back, if, pricing or whatever is not looking good, that's something that we could re-collaborate with, possibly? Without being too uber vague and out in the open,
We
but
can talk to the mob, we can talk to the library, see if they have input, we can have more conversation with Capitola Cares, we can kind of work out an MOU, find some balance between what we've heard this evening and come back to council, and you can adjust it then if it doesn't meet your expectations.
I was going to, go ahead.
With that long-winded explanation, I would like to second that.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's bring Councilmember Westman back in. Welcome back. Okay, we will start item 8B. This is the no right turn on red restrictions. At Claire's and Capitola, the action tonight is to receive the reports on the no right turn on red.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. At council request, we are coming here to provide some clarification regarding the purpose and necessity of the restrictions, both at the Claire's and at the Capitola Road and 41st intersections. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the history of why they were implemented, talk a little traffic engineering about what no right turn on red and bike boxes are, and then have some discussion. So for anyone who's not familiar with 41st Avenue, it is our main arterial north-south through town. It is a major commercial access point. There's a lot of turning volumes, a lot of heavy truck traffic, a lot of pedestrian and bike traffic. If you don't spend a lot of time out there, is actually quite a bit more than you might think on a busy arterial. And then also, of course, gives us our freeway access onto Highway 1. There have been multiple projects, definitely many before 2012, but the most relevant ones started at 2012 in terms of the no right turn on red. The first one being in 2012, which was primarily a project coming away from the mall towards the freeway, but also affected the other direction of Claire's that necessitated the no right turn on red, which we'll talk about in a moment. The adaptive signal control project that was over several years, funded by the Air Board as a means to reduce greenhouse gases by limiting stops and starts of traffic. So really, the adaptive project is to get you from the north-south through town without stopping through all the traffic lights, so keeping a steady flow of traffic. The Claire's multimodal improvements, which was late 2022, which restriped the that end of Claire's, however, did not change really the traffic pattern there, but there was updated striping for current bike
use. And then, of course, the Capitola Road project that was in 2023, which actually significantly changed some of the lane structure on Capitola Road in that intersection. So also as a reminder, as it is a main arterial through town, this is a accident heat map. And then also next to it, we have the accident counts. As an arterial, you would expect there to be quite a few accidents. These are all injury accidents from the past 15 years. The highest concentration being at the intersections, which is typical and expected of an arterial road. So why do no right turn red restrictions exist? So they are a safety tool allowed by the California Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is kind of our Bible for street signage and markings, where there's an elevated conflict risk. So some of those risks are conflicting turning movements, like a U-turn versus a right turn, like we have on Claire's, bicycle and pedestrian interactions, places where we have limited right-of-way, where we can't have an extra like dedicated right turn lane or lanes are narrow generally, and then constrained geometry or different geometry where like a road might be elevated from its cross street. And then high traffic and high risk intersections, which typically arterials just tend to be by nature of being arterial roads. So for Clare Street specifically, the primary conflict that necessitated the no right turn on red were cars coming south and making a U-turn, presumably to get back to the freeway entrance. So someone turning right, coming from the library area and then turning right onto 41st may not expect someone making that U-turn because they are looking left. Also, there's reduced visibility in that intersection because the intersection is higher than its cross street. So this is time limited because there are higher daytime traffic volumes during the daytime hours. Also, as you would expect, increased multimodal activity. The adaptive signal, again, is to, on 41st, keep cars moving. So where you might experience more gaps on a signal corridor that's not timed because they're stopping every time it reaches a cross street at any given cross street, and so that creates gaps in the traffic pattern. The whole point of the adaptive signal is once you have a slug of cars, they keep moving. So there really isn't a gap until the signal changes for you to go. That's the purpose of the adaptive system, which makes it hard to turn right turn on red because presumably there's traffic going through. That's less an issue, obviously, in the evening and early morning hours. Just in case you couldn't visualize that, we're between the Burger King and the Mattress Firm, and that is that U-turn there and then the right turn where we're talking about. And then it's a little hard to tell on this screenshot from Google Maps, but that intersection is higher than Clare Street is generally, so it makes it harder to see until you're practically in the intersection. So the no right turn on red restrictions on Capitola Road is a different situation where the first was a timing and traffic flow issue. This one is more of a bike safety issue. So there is a bike box in both going east and west on Capitola Road, but we are talking about going out of town. And you are meant to sit in the bicyclist is meant to sit in the bike box while they wait to go straight. The bike box is in the right lane, which would make a car turning right potentially a hazard for them. This is all the time. This is always an issue. And it is unfortunately also a geometry issue because there's just not enough right of way there to create a free right turn, which would be able to alleviate this issue. But as we went through the process of developing this project several years ago, there just isn't that kind of real estate on that street. This does create a delay, particularly in the middle of the night when nobody is there. There's generally not bikes there and you have to wait until the signal turns. The adaptive system, again, does make you wait longer because it is a coordinated up 41st Avenue. And so that is a trade-off for bicycle safety at other times of the day. So just in case you're not familiar with the bike box, this is the configuration we have going here. So if you are in the bike lane and you're trying to turn left, the bike box allows you to get in the left lane to turn with traffic. If you're going straight, you stay in that bike lane on the right side. And again, a car turning right has the potential to conflict with the bicyclist. In case you're not familiar with the intersection, this is the little yellow bike there that is potentially in danger and the right turning motion. And this is also where you can kind of see the constraint here. So if you have two cars sitting there to go straight, there isn't any way to kind of shimmy around because there's just not that kind of right of way, nor without reducing a through lane, is there a way to make a right turn only lane, which is not a recommendation of our traffic engineer. Again, this is just to also see that same intersection where fortunately is flat, so we don't have some of those other issues we have at Clare Street, but the issue of the bike box still stands. So again, all of our arterial roads are where you see those bright yellow and red areas where we would expect to see our crash data. We did look at crash data prior to 2012 and prior to the other projects in both intersections. We do see higher collisions prior to that initial 2012 no right on red for Clare Street. The other data was non-conclusive. It does not include minor crashes or things that weren't responded to by the police. Obviously doesn't include near misses. So I can't say strongly that data says that there's less crashes there based on the data that we have. However, we do know that there are a lot of injury on the corridor in general. So it is something that we should be concerned about. So in summary, the Clares restriction is a time of day operational conflict, where the Capitola restriction is a bike safety condition, both of which are addressed by the MUTCD and the way we've addressed them here in the city. At this point, there is no fiscal impact. This is just an informational item, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you for the information. Any questions, Mr. Clark?
So if we're looking here at the Clares intersection at 41st, there is no crosswalk on the northbound side, correct?
Correct.
And so earlier you said the reason why they had the stops at no right turn was because of the crosswalks.
So the no right turn on red purpose from 2012 when it was installed was this U-turn motion. So the car that is turning right in the red arrow typically is not expecting someone to make that U-turn. They're usually looking left, which is also a difficult way to look because of the geometry of the intersection. And since they're trying to go typically through a slug of cars because the light is red, there's a higher risk of you hitting someone who's making that U-turn motion.
Well, just like anything, you have to yield to traffic to be doing the U-turn. So it's just the rules of the road situation.
That is an accurate statement. I don't know if the police chief has any other comments to that, but that is the purpose of the no right turn on red.
I'm just debating it because I live in that area, and for so many years I've gone through there. And what happens nowadays is the gridlock happens so often with the northbound traffic on 41st Avenue that even when it's your turn to turn right on the green light, you can't. And sometimes you sit through 2 cycles. That's happened to me a couple of times in like rush hour traffic. I try not to drive in rush hour traffic just for those reasons. And then the other thing is where they do make the U-turn right there, most vehicles are larger, like SUVs. They have to do a 3-point turn to complete the U-turn. So if we did anything, I think we should do a no U-turn at that portion of 41st Avenue. And the last comment I had is also that the way we have the new bike lanes, there is no conflict with the bike lane for the vehicles that are turning right onto 41st Avenue from Clares. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is not a bike issue at this intersection.
So with those arguments, I would say we should get rid of the red light, no turning on the red light at Clares. That's my opinion. Thank you for answering them.
Thank you for the report, Director Khan. It looks like, based on your report, we've made significant changes in the last 2 to 4 years. We also have a 41st Avenue repavement project that is out for bid, correct? Can you please remind us of the timeline of that repavement improvement project?
Sure. So that is currently out to bid. It does depend on the prices we get back. It is opening at already the end of the month, so the end of next month. And we are anticipating that to be a summertime project.
Okay. And with that, as I remember it, there will be bike, the protections, so delineators. So folks during rush hour can't get off of 41st and hop back on, which I think is causing a lot of this backup on 41st Avenue during traffic times. Do you anticipate traffic flow to improve after the work is done?
That is the intent of the project, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's all.
Questions, Ms. Westman?
I don't have questions. I'll make mine in comments.
Do we, by chance, understand what the path of travel is, why everybody's coming down to make that U-turn that Councilmember Clark was referring to? Is it because of traffic? Is a practice that we're seeing is people getting off the freeway, zooming down there, doing the U-turn because that might be faster to get back on the freeway and catch back up? I don't really understand what all the traffic would be doing to come to do that U-turn, other than maybe just what Kentucky Fried Chicken and A&W. I mean, I like a root beer float.
The car wash.
But is there anything? Do we have any counts or study on why that might be such high traffic of doing that U-turn?
So besides access to businesses on that side of the street, like you mentioned, there are access businesses on the other side of the street. I believe there's a dental office, there's an office building, the Sweet Peas is there, where if you wanted to get on the freeway, you would have to turn right and go southbound and then turn around to get back on the freeway. So I would anticipate that quite a bit of that traffic is the traffic that is doing the U-turn.
And not that I expect, but it's all these traffic studies. Are there ever counts like on U-turn? Did we ever do that much of detail? Do we know that U-turn counts?
I don't know our most recent data, but definitely there have been counts taken at this intersection.
Okay. I have no other question. My only question, I think, where this really came from, or more of a comment where this came from, is, I think there's a balance of the frustration of waiting at these two things, and then are we creating another safety issue? And I think one of the letters that came in, talk about what everybody's doing now is just cutting through the Wells Fargo parking lot and just jumping back out into the road. So are we creating a safe environment just at that intersection, but creating a dangerous one? Kind of like what I think we're dealing with that, Bay and Hill and stuff like that. And I just wondering if was there any studies done that on some of those comments that are being made about people cutting through the parking lot? Is that really a valid fact that we're seeing, or have we had complaints from the property owners there, that there's a lot of extra traffic in their parking lots and stuff like that?
Not that I'm aware of. I will say with the Bay Avenue project that we did in the Nob Hill, that was a comment we got very frequently. Like, I have quite a bit of data on that one from public comment. This one, while we have received some complaints about the no right turn on red, I cannot recall an overwhelming amount talking about cutting through the parking lot.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? All right, I do not have any at this time, so we will go to public comment on this item. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Clark Cochran. I live in the Jewel Box, and I face the no right turn onto 41st from Capitola Road every day. And multiple times a day, it takes multiple traffic lights to turn right. Now, I'm also a bicyclist, and I avoid that intersection at all costs. I do not see a huge number of bicyclists on that road. And yet, I do see lots of cars that are backed up that can't turn right. So I'd like to see if it's possible to allow both to live within that intersection. Maybe we restrict the bicyclists in a way. I think if we looked at the number of cars versus bicyclists, you're talking 100 to 1, a couple hundred to 1. I think we have to look at what is best for the flow within the city, still keeping protection and making sure that no one's injured. And I think that can be done. I think we need to look into it again. We also need to look into the posting of where that no right turn on red sign is right now. Multiple times, cars have pulled in to my right, and they've gone, you can't turn right. And they go, where's the sign? It should be posted, if we're going to keep it, hopefully we don't, should be posted on the far side of the intersection so cars can see it very easily. But I would like to see that restriction be eliminated. I have made mention before, going to the airport, 4 in the morning, I can't turn right. Don't listen to this, because I've told you too, and I've told Jessica, and I've told Councilman Jensen. Don't sit on that intersection because we're going to have to turn right. There are no cars on the road. And so it makes such little common sense to have to restrict it 24 hours a day. Maybe we can do something that triggers the signal, does something to make it a little better. How many bikes have we seen out there at 4 a.m.? Okay, nobody said anything. I agree there are none. So let's be intelligent about this. How can we change this so that it supports the best interests of everything and makes traffic flow a whole heck of a lot better? Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Paula Bradley. My comment is about the no right turn from Claire's onto 41st. We live in the neighborhood. We hate it. It's the intersection. It's not so bad that the no right turn is there. That makes sense with the collisions, and I understand about the U-turn issue. I look at that a lot and think about it. But the biggest problem is the gridlock. So the people coming from the mall side of Claire's, when the light turns yellow, they just keep coming. They don't care if they can see that they're not going to be able to clear that intersection before the light turns green on 41st. They just keep coming. And most of them are trying to get into the right turn lane when they could actually get in the middle lane and, continue going. So when we come up to the right-hand turn, like Mr. Clark said, we'll be sitting there for 2 or 3 light signals, and then you're trying to get to Highway 1 where you're going to be sitting through a few more. And sadly, sometimes if the straight through lane is clear, when I'm trying to turn right onto 41st, I'll drive crazy and go around and then get into the middle lane just to get out of there, so I'm not still sitting there. So that's not a great thing. So I'd just really like to know if you could do something about the gridlock. I've never seen anybody getting ticketed for blocking the intersection, and the vehicles, my understanding is the vehicle code is you're not supposed to enter an intersection if you can't anticipate that you're going to be able to clear the intersection. So I don't understand that, and I see people that keep coming from Claire's that run the red light trying to get through there. So that's part of the problem. So I'd really like to hear what could be done about the gridlock situation. I'm not asking to remove the no right turn, although, we really hate it. And I'd also like to say I appreciate the presentation. The bike box on Claire's that's there for the straight ahead motion is really great, but there's nothing for the bicyclist to turn right onto 41st. But I don't complain about that too much, because if I'm on that court, I try to avoid 41st entirely. I'm a cyclist. But if I'm going to make that right-hand turn and I see vehicles coming, or they're all parked at the right, stuck there, I just get on the sidewalk and ride on that. And, that's not really great either. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Good evening. I just have a couple of clarifications that, as someone that drives that like everybody here does. So my first question is, since we have the adaptive traffic light system on 41st, I guess my question is, why does that cause the backup between Highway 1 and Claire's Avenue? In other words, what's the cause of that, and how can that be resolved? Because that would help adapt part of it. A second potential question with regard to the right turn on Capitola, especially given the number of bikes, and especially e-bikes that don't have lights running around in the dark anyway, is since you have a 10 to 6 limit on Claire's, could we have not some type of reverse limit where the right turn on Capitola from dusk to dawn is not active? So it's only for daylight hours. So a couple of questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll come back for any other comments. Ms. Westman.
Well, first, I appreciate all the work staff did on putting together this presentation and explaining to us what's going on there. And I think for all of us, safety is the critical thing that we worry about. And I looked at both intersections, drove through both intersections, and I'll start with the Clare Street intersection because for me, it's the easier one right now. And what I would like to see happen there is that we're getting ready to do a major paving project that we talked about on 41st Avenue. And I would like, some sort of commitment that once that paving project is completed and we see the new, because there's going to be some new lane configurations, new lane widths, new bicycle lanes in there, that we have a commitment that staff will go back and look at that intersection and see how it's functioning after the improvements have been completed. And it may need to be changed. I don't know if it will or it won't for the Clares intersection, but I do think the new traffic going through there is going to change how that intersection functions. So I see it as a problem, but I see it as a problem that we shouldn't try and change right now because we're going to be doing so many other changes in the area. We need to wait till that project is done. For the Capitola Road one, I do think we have created a situation where there is a safety hazard that resulted from what we did. That's not to say that we did anything wrong, but sometimes you do something and there's a reaction to the action that we took. And I personally have seen people doing the shortcut, going through Whole Food. Most of the people I see actually turn not at the bank lane, though I've seen them do that. They turn where the driveway is into Whole Foods and skirt around there and go back to 41st Avenue. So while we haven't gotten too many complaints about that, I for one can say I've actually seen that go on. So I would like to see, staff look at that intersection, look where the bike box is, look, are there alternatives or different ways that we could configure that intersection so that it works better. I certainly think it's ridiculous to have the no right turn 24 hours a day. I mean, seems like right now we could say, from 9 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock in the morning, it's the no right turns in effect because the reality is there are very few cyclists out there during those times of day. But I would like to see us come back and look at that intersection. There may not be a way to change it that makes it work, but I do think we owe it to our community and ourselves because we don't want to create a safety hazard based on what's going on right now. So those are my comments.
Great, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you again, Jessica, for bringing this up. A lot of times these questions come up from community members, and then your detailed reports kind of say, "Oh, that's why." And so I really appreciate that, because this really is more of an education. It's even a good overview for myself. But I don't really have any other comments other than I think that having a good discussion about this and just seeing that we're open to looking at these things and listening to our community when they bring up these concerns is very valuable, and I appreciate, again, your staff report.
Mr. Clark?
Yes, thank you for the presentation and giving us the opportunity to talk about this. I would like to see them go away, but I agree with Councilmember Westman. It wouldn't be the right time. So if we could come back after the construction is completed on 41st Avenue to look at removing and or maybe even for the Capitola Road one, changing the time like they do have at Claire's where it's 10 to 6, no right turn. But yeah, with something we could bring back and look at when we get done with our construction. And let's face it, the traffic in Santa Cruz County is never going to get better. It's only going to get worse. So So there's ways if we can make it better, that's great. And to our public comment, well, the reason why on 41st Avenue, the right lane northbound gets blocked between the freeway and Claire's is because traffic on Highway 1 is stopped. So then it goes all the way back. So that's why it stops so often and causes a gridlock. But thank you again for the presentation.
All right. So as someone who bikes in this town and probably the only council member who bikes across 41st on a regular basis, these intersections are scary places to be, period. Nonetheless, I need to cross 41st in both directions every time I ride down here for council meetings or when I have business on this side of town. Having dedicated bike lanes and the painted bike box configuration, I think, are crucial for pedestrian and bicycle safety. The safety of our residents, I think, is paramount, and I really don't want us to be rash about undoing safety improvements in some of the busier streets that we just put in 2 to 4 years ago with probably a lot of money. I think it's especially important as we're considering redevelopment of the mall and connecting this commercial corridor to our coastal rail trail. It doesn't make sense to me to take away these multimodal infrastructure improvements that we just put in. I do agree that with Councilmember Westman and my fellow council members that we should wait to see through the completion of the 41st repavement project and assess the impact before we decide if any action is necessary. I know Councilmember Clark mentioned getting rid of that no U-turn sign. What I worry about is that pushing it downstream to become a downstream problem. If they can't U-turn there, then are they going to U-turn on 41st and Cap? If they can't U-turn, how far are we pushing it, the problem downstream? I'm not opposed to restricting hours on Capitola Road, especially in the nighttime. But I wonder if we're going to be compliant with the rules of the road Bible that you referenced, Director Khan, whether that's going to be in compliant with the rules.
So in its current configuration, yes. There's
In the-
potential to, and I would have to look because I don't really recall every iteration of this project we did off the top of my head. But if we were to keep the bike box in a way, the way that it's set up now cannot be a time basis. That bike box as it's currently configured is there all the time. So the restriction needs to be there all the time. You would have to remove the bike box, take out the hazard, or modify the bike box in some way, if that is possible with the area that we have, to remove that restriction.
I sit in that bike box, so I appreciate it being there. And then also, with the comments from our public, is there an enforcement opportunity? I know we're down on revenue with citations. So is there an opportunity to spend a few hours out there during the peak hours and just ticket so people learn their lessons?
So we don't actually make money off those tickets. Yeah. But, there's always an opportunity to do more enforcement. Without analyzing, I haven't analyzed the data that Jessica found, but just in being here for a long time, the mattress shop was a very common place that we would meet people that got into collisions because of the conflict between 41st Avenue and Clare Street. But I have it in my notes. We'll do some focus there, but we're not going to get any money from that.
Thank you for the information. I think it's good for the community and for us to all get acquainted with the information. I'm in full agreement that I think Clare Street should just be maintained the way it is, especially moving forward. See how the new construction works with what we have now. Definitely, if anything, the signage on Capitola Road, I think I mentioned this when we installed it. The sign is too far back. So, I think on Claire's there's two signs. There's one on the right hand side of the Claire's, and then one across the intersection. for the no right turn on red. I think if anything could install that, that would be really helpful for the public. And yes, thank you for your report.
So I'm willing to try making a motion if everyone's done. I don't want to hurry anyone.
I don't think we need a motion.
We can receive the report and ask them to come back after the construction's completed on 41st.
Yeah, I was just going to, I think I would ask them to come back after construction is completed on 41st Avenue as far as the Clares intersection is concerned. I would ask if staff could come look at the Capitola Road intersection and see if there is an ability to, modify the bike box or change it, not in a way that's going to make it more unsafe for people, but simply to give it a second look to see if there is an approach that would work better, to see if it might be possible, even to put, I guess we can't do a no right turn into the bank or into Whole Foods, but, look at that and evaluate it, because if, for example, if we could modify it so then you actually could put up an hours thing where at 9 p.m. to 5, I don't know what the exact hours should be, that the right turn doesn't apply during those hours. So I would just like to ask them to, come back with both of them, but at different times, so that we thoroughly have sort of looked at it. I think we owe it to our community and sort of
I want to make sure we allow for some time after the implementation, right? It shouldn't be like right after the implementation.
I agree.
Right? Like
maybe 6
months after the implementation to assess some data. And then, obviously we don't have funding for making any changes. It would be a budget amendment. So just looking at it, I think is fine as long as we're not spending a ton of money.
Thank you.
I think we can all be in agreement. Is that enough information from us? Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So keep this on. Item 8C, 2025-2026 mid-year budget report. We are receiving the fiscal year mid-year budget report and adopting a resolution amending the fiscal year 2025-2026. Welcome, Jim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Back in my normal closer role tonight instead of early in the agenda. So tonight, I'll be going over the mid-year budget report, which is financial activity through December 31st of 2025. Through the mid-year, our general fund revenues are tracking pretty consistent with budget. Expenditures are slightly ahead of the timeline at 59% at mid-year, 50% of the way through the year. But that's pretty standard. A lot of that's from the UAL payment that we make, and I'll get into that a little bit. And then some of the contracts that we have, we pay earlier in the year than later. But our budget is projected to end the year at or below budget and maintain structurally balanced. That's right, I'm doing this. These are the numbers. I can't help myself. I put these slides up there, but not everybody likes these. But the biggest one here is the first one is taxes. You'll see a big jump there. That's primarily from, we got our property tax in December this year. Last year we got it in January. That tax number also includes the sales tax payment that we received this week, and then I book it back to December so that that's the December sales tax amount. We just don't receive it until now. Again, sales tax is on budget. This is the first full year of Measure Y. So last year we had 1 quarter of Measure Y. This year we get a full 4 quarters, 1.1 million. Property tax is slightly above budget projections. However, TOT is slightly below. I think on the property tax side, it's just more properties are turning over than we had estimated at the beginning. On the TOT side, it's driven more from room rates, not occupancy rates. We're still seeing the same amount of activity. It's just the rates for the nightly rates have come down a little bit. Franchise fees continuing to exceed budget. That's really driven by high utility costs. And And then our cannabis tax, I don't have it listed there, is again short. These two seem to be offsetting each other, so we'll probably just adjust them so that they start matching up more appropriately next year. But overall, all tax revenues are slightly above expectations for mid-year. For licenses, permits, and service charges, building permits are tracking a little bit ahead of budget. That is primarily due to a large project that's starting to pull their permits. I don't think they will pull any more this year, so we haven't really bumped that revenue up. But if they do, it'll be kind of a bonus one time for this year. But we will probably see some increased building permit, like one-time bump to that next year from a couple of larger projects.
So the one for this year is the project on 38th Avenue, the 50-something.
Correct. And they've just started to pull permits. They have other permits to pull. Business license revenue has increased over last year, and that is, we think the budget number will be the same. The total revenue, we're going to hit our budget. It's just we're seeing with the introduction of online payments, people are paying faster, so the revenue's coming in the door a little earlier. Pay stations are performing as expected. We went through kind of reconfigured pay stations. I believe they are all working right now. We might have one because I saw a quote for they're all working, or one needs a repair, I think, because I saw a quote for some parts. But they're all pretty close to being operational now. And then on the police service, reimbursements for special events, that is exceeding its budget, which helps offset overtime for special events. So on the PD side, I'll talk about some overtime being higher than budgeted. This helps offset some of those higher numbers coming in. Oops, I went one too far. Fines and forfeitures. So parking citations, we are only, well, for the whole group, but really this parking citations is the big one in this category. We're only at 25% of our revenue at 50% of the year. This has been a trend we've seen over the last couple of fiscal years, and it's been driven by staffing shortages or turnover and equipment challenges that I was just talking about. We have addressed both of those, and we just last week hired a third PEO, so we are fully staffed with parking enforcement officers right now. Again, equipment's all working, so we anticipate regular operations going forward, but we will see, we are proposing to reduce parking citation revenue for this fiscal year by $150,000. We'll also be having some offsetting budget amendments to make sure the budget it stays balanced. So expenditures, again, 59% at the mid-year, 50% through. A lot of that is the UAL prepaid, so $2.9 million payment paid in July. We realized $98,500 of savings from that. That's based on 3.4% interest earnings. We probably, in hindsight's 50-50, probably could have done a little better by not prepaying that. So we'll look a little harder at that this next fiscal year and see if that's the right call or if it makes more sense to just kind of pay that throughout the year and keep that cash in the bank earning money. There was a question, the FAC met on Tuesday and a question came up about the CalPERS Trust. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly. The CalPERS Trust, established in 2015, was established to offset increasing CalPERS costs. Jamie and I have always thought of that as kind of utilizing that when the mall goes into redevelopment. As the sales tax revenue comes down, we can use that to offset some of the CalPERS costs that we have. Those funds, once they go into that trust, they are restricted and can only be used for retirement payments. The target balance for that, this is kind of interesting, the target balance for that reserve is 1 year's UAL payment. So in 2015, our target was $1 million because that's what our UAL payment was. Our balance now is 1.7, which represents not quite 60% of 1 year's payment. So that's how much the UAL has grown and just our payment has grown in 10 years. We had 1.7 million at December 31st. Overall, personnel, I did talk about overtime, but overall, citywide, our personnel costs are actually tracking 2% below budget, and that includes NPD, where the overtime is the biggest challenge right now. And then citywide departments are maintaining budget discipline and staying within the authorized budget. As I mentioned, the police department, we've seen overtime for midway through the year, they're already exceeded their full annual budget. However, that's due to vacancies and then the training of new officers, we have enough vacancy savings in the police department to more than offset that extra overtime cost. So I'll be recommending a budget amendment to kind of realign those costs. It's not adding cost to the budget, just realigning. And again, their personnel costs are still below their budget. It just needs to be realigned. And then the vacancy savings in parking enforcement, vacancy savings that we have in law enforcement, which is 2 MSOs we're currently recruiting for and 1 police officer. Even going through our normal recruitment process, just that timing takes so long that we'll have enough savings if we fill those as fast as we can through our process to balance out the parking budget for the remainder of their year if we do the proposed budget amendments that I'm going to recommend. Contract services, we're at 64% halfway through the year. This includes encumbrances, so anything that we've obligated to enter into a contract, whether or not those monies have been spent, we pull them out as being available. We also have some front-loaded contracts, our MBEJA contracts for our insurance, as well as our 911 emergency call center. A lot of those fees, those are some of our bigger contracts, and they're paid generally in the first quarter to first half of the year. Our legal fees are still trending a little higher than we thought, mostly driven by PRA, continuing. It's not that they've increased, but they haven't come down much at all. And then we've had a couple of law enforcement things that have incurred some towing costs that normally this is a really low dollar item, and this year I want to say we've incurred like $20,000 or $25,000 of towing costs. Our consulting services are higher than we would anticipate this year, but again, we're using consultants to cover some vacancies. So if we do the budget amendment to realign, we'll get those back in line. So the proposed budget amendment on the revenue side, we're proposing to increase police department special event revenue by $20,000. Their budget is currently 60, they're at 68, so that's really an increase of about 12,000 of revenue with the 2 car shows coming up still in this fiscal year. Parking citation revenue, reduced that by 150, so taking that from 600,000 down to 450,000. Plan check review, which is for, we charge for plan checks that we send out to have reviewed by a consultant. I'm going to have an exact same expenditure for the, or recommendation for an expenditure budget amendment for plan check review as well. The net revenue changes to the general fund are reducing overall revenue by $80,000. On the expenditure side, there's a long list there, but it's reducing PD wages, increasing overtime. There's about a $78,000 difference between those 2 numbers. That's what we're using to balance out on the parking. When you look at law enforcement and parking, it's 1 budget unit, 2 divisions, so we can kind of use the 2 to balance out. We're recommending reducing wages and contract services and parking enforcement. That was from being short-staffed. We didn't have to pay wages. We don't have short-staffed to write citations. We don't have as many citation processing fees. The $10,000 increase to the pay station repair is for the repair that Chief Ryan and I were just talking about, plus keeping about $5,000 there in case we have 1 more before June. Plan checks increasing $50,000. That's just an offset to the revenue that we collect to pay for those. These next 2 for planning and building are just realigning wages with consulting services based on salary savings from the vacant senior planner position and the vacant building official position. And all of those equal a reduction of total general fund expenditures by $80,000. So net impact to the general fund is 0. So we still have the same bottom line for our budget. It's just aligned into different accounts. For special revenue funds, typically what we've been doing is we budget what our revenue estimate is each year into the pavement management program, or whatever road program we have going. We've exceeded those estimates a couple of years in a row, so we did a true up to see what it looked like in those 2 funds. And between the 2 funds, we have about $239,500 of fund balance that has not been appropriated, that is available for future road projects. In talking to Jess, we just put out the bid for 41st Avenue, and we did a base bid with all alternates in there. So the thought that Jessica and I had was we have this available. If the bids come in and we need some of it, it's there. If not, then it can go to road projects through the next budget cycle. So in summary, we're reducing general fund revenues by 80,000, also reducing general fund expenditures by 80,000. So net impact is 0, maintaining a structurally balanced budget. Special revenue funds, increasing available funding for future road projects by 239,500. I do want to touch on our prior fiscal year. I've talked a little bit about missing our estimates. So we ended last year, our revenues came in a little over 600,000 below what we were estimating. Expenditure or budgeted, and expenditures were about 45,000. So we started the year with a beginning fund balance of 761,005. That means we ended last year with 2,015. When we started this year's budget, we were using 500 as kind of our placeholder. That truing that up is now 200,000. So we'll need to look at that number through our next budget cycle. And is 200 enough? Do we need to raise it back up to 500? Or do we need to, the 500 was established and we had a much smaller budget, we might think about raising that to 750. So when we come in with proposed budget, we'll kind of lay out some options on how to address that general fund balance. And speaking of budget process, so about a month from today, we will kick off with council goal setting. We will have a proposed budget distributed in mid-April and then kick off the special meetings for budget hearings in May. The May 21st, we will get our March sales tax number. We won't get the amount, but I'll know what the number is on May 20th. So that May 21st budget hearing, we might be adjusting some of our forecasts based on what our sales tax looks like for that third quarter. Yes. And then Finance Advisory Committee kind of meeting concurrently, and then proposed budget adoption at our last regular meeting in June. Again, the FAC did meet on Tuesday. We reviewed the same report, and they unanimously recommended approving the budget resolution as presented by staff. Mayor Morgan and Councilmember Westman did abstain from that since they're considering the resolution tonight. So tonight's recommended action is to receive the mid-year budget report and adopt a resolution amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Councilmember Clark, question?
Just a couple questions. On the TOT tax, was that separated between the hotels and the rentals for short term?
Not in the numbers that I present. I have it separated in our general ledger. I don't present it separated.
So it being down, we can't tell if it's a trend of the hotels or if it's the short-term rentals?
It is a trend of the short-term rentals is about half of the shortage, and the other half is one of our hotels is struggling right now, and we're working with them to get them caught up.
Okay. The special events, is most of the police overtime used for special events, or is it training, or have we identified where the problem is?
So there's 3 different categories we use for police overtime. There's regular general fund overtime, which is just, covering shifts and sicknesses and illnesses or whatever. There's special event overtime where we actually we budget revenue and then an expense and they should zero out. And then we have grant revenue. The special event revenue is tracking, it's already ahead of budget for the year. The general fund overtime is, now that I've adjusted everything, I think the budget is 220 and we're at like 222 or 225. It's just covering vacancies. And then when they have new officers in their training program, that officer has to be with another officer. So it's taking 2 officers to do 1 shift. So it's just a combination of that. On the training front, police, I want to say since probably November, December-ish, has scaled back their training to just what is required to under post to be done before June 30th. So any of the training that is just for advancement has kind of been postponed. Any training that's required but you don't have to do until after July 1st, we're sliding that out. So we're trying to just slow slow that down a little bit, but making sure that our officers are getting the training they need.
Thank you. And lastly, the UAL for PERS, if the inflation and the economy is better, then we pay less, and so we shouldn't prepay ahead of time. Is that what you were saying earlier?
So if you CalPERS, they have a discount rate of 6.8%, which is basically like an interest rate. So if you pay in July, they give you half of that, 3.4% of a credit like interest, because you're not spreading the payment out over the whole year. So by paying it in July, we're saving $98,000. If we had paid it over the course of the year, it probably would have been a little more savings because the interest on our CDs was a little bit higher than the 3.4. That makes sense. It's just kind of like playing the interest rate game on who's better.
The other factor is you'll recall that we did a report on kind of cash flow position, and unlike prior, it's a newer condition for us based on sort of the rate of project delivery that we've been seeing. We have had lower cash positions as we've moved through the fall. So that's another factor we're going to be considering as we look into prepaying the PERS is, you know, the potential savings and trying to maximize that, and then also make sure we're in a strong cash position through the fall.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Rohrbach, questions? Okay. Councilmember Rossman?
I just have a couple, be fast. So in parking enforcement, we're fully staffed right now, and those people are dedicated only to parking?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, that was my main question for right now.
Great. A couple questions. So just talking about parking first, I guess it was estimated to be at $600,000 this year. Last year, I think it was $5 or something like that. And I know we had vacancies and so that, but so going forward, your numbers are through December 31st, correct? And so going forward, we are confident. So we're looking at the readjustment that we're going to be parking down. The goal is to go to 450,000. And so are you able to track what it is like in last, I mean, because if that's from January 1, December 31st to July 1, we already have, 2.5 months already used up of that. So, I mean, our target goal is like $24,000 a month. Is that what we're tracking? Are you able to track the January, February? I'm just saying, I guess what point I'm trying to make, is that a realistic goal that we are going to have with already knowing that we're a couple months into the 6 months that we're looking at?
It's a number that we can track. I wouldn't be hitting that target yet because Seth just started last week, and I think Jason's only been here maybe a month, maybe 5-6 weeks. I think it's a realistic target. When I was looking back at revenues from prior years in fiscal year 2022, which is the last year we were fully staffed, we hit $587,000 and our tickets were half as much. So in theory, we should almost be able to double that if we're fully staffed. So I think the 450, it's an aggressive number for a new staff, but I think it's an attainable number based on the price of the tickets.
No, just for your comment that we're just getting fully staffed, but we've already used up, a couple months of the 6 months use. I'm just concerned we're so tight on money. Are we making decisions based off of, factual numbers, and just should we be looking at other things and be a little more conservative, or do you feel fine about that?
There's a little bit of wiggle room there in some of the salary savings on the law enforcement side, unless they hire a new police officer next week. We should be okay.
Right.
If they come in a little bit below the 450, we have a little bit of wiggle room there.
Right. Perfect. Thank you. And so a question, why are we exceeding our revenue for special events?
I'm not so we changed the fee structure, and I don't know, I might have to defer to the chief. I don't know if we staff them different, if we're doing more events different, or exactly what is driving that. I know that the what we charge per hour went up drastically with the last fee schedule update. And so it may just be that we were kind of low on the number.
I just want to make sure, as a council member, I understand, is it a revenue generating opportunity that our police look at these special events and is helping generate revenue to offset budget, because at the same time, that concerns me. Some of our special events are things that make Capitola so special, and then we hear complaints that it's so much higher. So I'm trying to understand between the two.
Do you want me to tab in? Just waiting. So, yes, I understand what you're saying. So the events are amazing, and then we are expensive, especially at the overtime rate to support the events. So I believe it's gone up because our cost has gone up, what we cost per hour, as well as we had some, for example, we had the VW event, which was new to us. And so we staff events not knowing exactly what's going to be needed. Monty, for example, was extraordinarily busy, the busiest we'd ever seen. So there's unforeseen events that happen within an event where we can't leave the event. One of the things that we're doing moving forward, because we also receive that same feedback from the event coordinators, is how expensive those bills are, is our operations captain it sits with them prior to building out the event to see where can we cut costs. And I say that reluctantly because a lot of our costs come when we are closing down roads and needing to provide public safety. But moving forward, working with events to see where can they hire private security that we work well with, because that's a lower cost. So we are talking about that moving forward, because we do understand that we're expensive. That answers your question.
Yeah, no, so I answered my question, but it gets back to, we say there's going to be revenue off the special event. So is that, you're shaking it, I'm sorry.
I guess I didn't really see it ever as revenue. It's that it's offsetting because it's taking from our overtime budget, which we also need to protect for actual public safety events that take place, that we need to staff if something terrible happens.
That's what I was trying to get to. So I just don't want it to look like the PD is generating revenue on the backs of the thing.
That is not the way I see it.
Make sure that we clarify that it's the cost of overtime, and then there's a fee that gets paid. It's just, and so I just want to make that very clear, because, to me, when I hear revenue, I'm like, I don't want people to think that's.
We are not in the money-making business in that way, that's for sure. So no, it is to offset, because as a chief, I need to be protective of our overtime budget to support public safety in other ways as well for the unexpected.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. I think that's really good for the community. And then, I guess more to the chief, could you just give us a brief overview? I think Jim did a great job kind of summarizing it, but what's different, like just quick on why the overtime is so much higher this year than previous, and just remind us all again of your staffing challenges and stuff like that.
So when I was sworn in on December 4th of 2024, that created an immediate shift, right? We some benefits. I appreciate being an internal chief, but it also created vacancies, promotions and vacancies that took place, as well as we had 2 officers that went to work for other organizations. So we were down immediately 4 positions, which in our organization is large. We're only 22 sworn, so that's significant for us. And so getting into the process of backfilling those positions, hoping to get somebody that maybe has police academy training, but if not, they need to go to the academy. That's costly. And of course, the opportunity to train them, where you have officers doubled up for a period of time per police officers' training standards.
Okay. Sorry, just a couple more questions. When we're looking at source of revenue and stuff, and it might be more towards the city manager, are we looking at every opportunity in the city for revenue generating? It seems hard that we always get down to the budget and then we look to the PD on where are they in their overtime and their parking, and trying to come out. That it seems like there's always the touchy point on talking about funds and revenue and everything. And I was wondering, like, looking at the rec center coming online, is that going to give us an opportunity to have more classes, more opportunity, and that's going to be able to, looking at the future, additional revenues coming in off that? Right now, they probably have 1/3 of the space that they are going to have, and will that be able to help us in the future?
I think it's a potential, but I don't think it's going to bend the curve. So we will be bringing forward a fee schedule amendment to change our rental rates to sync up with the new facility, I believe, next meeting after?
Probably April.
April. So we'll have, because the space is divvied up in different ways, different room rates associated with the new space, that will generate revenue. It's never going to be a revenue source that's on the order of, parking sites, or potentially it's a revenue source that's on the order of, police OT. Maybe in my imagination. I can always hope.
It's just hard that when we have these openings like in PD, and the parking's gutted, it's not, we're paying out, it's covering overtime for police officers that are out protecting our community. And so there's not enforcement of writing tickets. So it's a double-edged sword. We're paying more for services that we need, and then we have the lack of revenue, and then it hurts us on the backside of the budget. And then just one other question. It was some of the projects that we have coming up and stuff, are we going to be looking at, I know like we outsource construction management services and stuff like that. Will we just be looking at other opportunities that maybe we can do some more things internally with, directly contract employees, and maybe look at that can be a fundraising, a way to save funds on some of the projects. And I don't know if we CM services for paving, or if we're doing that, or if we're not, maybe we can just look at, it just really concerns me that we're so tight on the budget every year. And so just challenging us all to, I guess, look across the board.
We are tight on the budget, but I think in some ways the goal of the city is to adopt a balanced budget, right? The goal is that assuming you have adequate reserves to carry you through the hard times, that it's not to save up money. So in some ways, this is the sign of success, is that we have a balanced budget. And so these adjustments, this is relatively typical. That being said, I do think the need for construction project management varies on the scale and scope of the projects you have, obviously, and then the bandwidth of existing staff, and then the number of projects that you have in the queue. So we are always looking, and I know Jessica and her team, they're always looking for when the opportunities are to do things in-house versus when the project scale is right, you can, good outside construction manager can kind of earn their keep, if you will.
We just look at the news, right? And hats off to the finance department that we're in this position. You just look at what the county came out with just last week. I think they're 2.4 in the hole that they have to make adjustments for this year, and they're looking at $68 million deficit for next year. So we're in okay shape. But I think it's great that our whole council's in a point of asking questions and trying to pay attention to where the budget, and I appreciate the insight that you've given us. That's all I have right now.
I have no questions, so we can go to public comment on this item. If anybody wish to speak. Hi, welcome.
Thank you very much, Leslie Nielsen. Super brief, bringing things in-house, and I'm going to make a suggestion to spend more with someone from the outside, but something thought-provoking did come up at the FAC meeting on Tuesday night. And when you review a budget, which this was great, and Jim and his team, thank you so much. It was really well done, and we've been waiting to kind of hear how the year's going relative to needing to get ready for next year. And when you talk about a mid-year review, it's all focused on the general fund, but we all know there's a ton of money spent in the city on things that aren't funded by the general fund, and Jessica and her team and everybody works really hard to go out and get grants to do a lot of those things. So this, sort of capital improvement projects. I asked the question at the FAC meeting, what's the grant landscape look like? And that's a whole nother conversation above and beyond the 20 million we talk about in the general fund. And, we spend 4 times that on capital improvement projects. So I just think in terms of getting ready for next year's budget, let's think about that. And our new chairperson on the FAC brought up a question the other night, if we've ever considered as a city funding a lobbyist to go out and help with some of that. And I had never even thought of that. So in any event, I thought it was thought-provoking. There might be an ROI there to doing something like that. FEMA money, the Otis money for a long time. It's just, poor Jim has to keep working with a new person they put in charge to say no. So if there are other ways that we can get resources or help to go out and think about grant money, I think that's with what's going on in our government and world, that's going to be a dicey thing for capital improvement projects. So let's think about getting ahead of that for next year. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, we can come back for comments or a motion, deliberation.
I think I've posed this question to our city manager before about having a lobbyist, and you mentioned that we do pay for one, right? Can you remind us again?
So we don't technically have a lobbyist. We do participate in the League of California Cities, which does lobby on behalf of our city as well as all cities. One of the things I would note is, I think if I could go back and advise myself when I first became a city manager, it very well might have been an interesting thing to invest in, to try to build those relationships with our leaders in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. I will note now, having been here for a number of years and our team's experience, that we have forged those relationships ourselves. And, we are getting the phone calls from Leonard's office, from Panetta's office saying, hey, you guys, this is a great opportunity. We want to support you in it. So I think it can be a great investment. The smaller cities generally rarely have lobbyists. And I do think, when you have sort of a new management team, it can be a great way to kind of transition and grow that management team into a position where they're able to successfully compete for those really competitive funds. Right now, I think we're actually in pretty good spot.
And I want to also say that I think we individually also meet with our senators and representatives and have relationships with them and talk to them about the various projects that we have in line and need funding for. So we are also advocates for the city.
I just have one comment I want to make, and that is that I guess I was a little behind the time on this, but I would like to thank the city council that was actually here in 2015, because I didn't understand what they actually had done in creating that PERS trust fund, because they did that in anticipation that something was ultimately going to happen on the Capitola Mall. And since they did that at that time, and it's been in place so long, they have actually put the city in quite a good position to be able to survive the 3 years or 4 years where construction's taking place there. So none of those people are still on the city council, but they were certainly great in looking into the future and planning for the future. And I hope we will do as good a job as they did on that item. Other than that, I would make a motion to, I lost my piece of paper. Make a motion to receive the fiscal year 2025-26 mid-year budget report and adopt a resolution amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget.
There's one thing I had a question about, and just looking at, and I heard earlier this evening that our PD is not doing any training or anything outside of what is just required by post. And just looking across, maybe a question to the city manager, is any other of our departments at this time doing the same right now? Or for additional training? I just want to make sure that they're not the only department that's not doing any extra training or travel for anything. Are any of our other departments doing anything right now, or should we be looking at kind of a unified, kind of across all departments, that we're treating everybody fairly and not just our PD, don't have the opportunity for additional training?
So we have not put a pause on all training and travel citywide. In PD, training and travel, training is such an important component of an officer's skills that even if you're doing the minimum amount of training, you're still involved in a fair amount of training in a given year. So it's been focused on what is the required training there. But we have not done that because for most other positions that I can think of off the top of my head, other than maybe building official, that may be it. And lawyers, you guys have to get a certain number of CLE credits every year, I know. There isn't mandatory training each year to maintain any sort of certification. So we have not, but the landscape is slightly different in that officers have a pretty defined regiment of required training.
That's it. No other comments, then I'll second the motion, and I just have one request of staff. You want me to ask you a question? Just, I think in the past, it's just concerning in one of the comments you were making that PRAs, it seems like they haven't come down in cost. I think it's really valuable to our community to know how important, our funding is, and these PRAs, how much money they cost us. And are you able to maybe show us, are these new PRAs, it seems like some of the issues that PRAs were based on before have gone away, but are there new issues that are coming up that are driving PRAs? Because I think all of us as city council members have relationships with the community, and to encourage them to not go through the PRA process. I mean, I know public information is very important, but I mean, sometimes it's just because they have a question, and to know that there's other ways to reach out to your council members or to city staff to ask the question that doesn't then kick us into the city clerk and then a lawyer and everything like that. And so I was wondering, are we able to just briefly put a snapshot together and just show kind of what that landscape looks like?
I would have to defer to the clerk on what the actual requests are. I can track the cost and I can see what the cost is each month, but what the actual requests are, I don't get that involved with.
It's just, I don't, and I just want to know the magnitude. I thought we were doing a lot better, and so it was just alarming tonight to hear that.
I would argue that this year, our PRA numbers are consistent in terms of volume. However, the amount of public records requests that involve attorney input have drastically been reduced, and our billing numbers do reflect that for this year. There were residual public records requests from last year that carried over to this year's billing, because production sometimes can take months for rolling productions of really voluminous requests. But for the most part, this year's requests have been pretty tame. About every other week, we try to include a PRA summary with the Friday update that the city manager sends out. So you'll see kind of a summary of what's being requested. And if you look at that, most of the requests are really relatively routine and handled in-house with no attorney input.
Thank you so much for that.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Let's do a roll call.
Councilmember Clark?
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach?
Aye.
Councilmember Westman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Jensen?
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan?
Aye. That takes us to item 9, adjournment. Take care of yourselves and everybody else around you.